Hello, my name is Nandita Ravikumar and this is my midterm project for CHP 199. The topic of our class is mass incarceration, and we have been discussing various aspects of the problem as it corresponds to a reading of the novel Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. The book follows Bryan Stevenson in his earlier days, representing a man named Walter McMillan who was on death row for a murder he insisted he did not commit. Although the novel primarily focuses on Walter's case, Stevenson brings up side topics and how they relate to the issue of mass incarceration. One of the topics I stumbled upon that we also discussed in class was juvenile incarceration. We talked about the school-to-prison pipelines, as well as the fact that the United States is one of the only few industrialized countries to implement the life sentencing for minors. To touch up on these topics more, I decided to ask a professional in this area and interviewed Ms. Connie Kaiser, Superintendent of the Juvenile Detention Center located in Urbana, Illinois. After talking with her, I learned a lot about youth in the criminal justice system. Superintendent Kaiser has been working at the center since the 1980s, so for over 37 years. She started working part-time there after college and worked her way up to superintendent. She admits that most of her professional experience has been in a juvenile setting, as she is passionate about helping and serving this audience. The average age of those at the center is 16. The range of most span between 10 to 20 years old. For those that are between ages 10 to 13, a local service provider has to, by law, place them outside juvenile custody. And those who are 18 to 20 years old and are technically not minors anymore can only be detained if they violate an order of probation or committed a new offense while they were on juvenile probation. To find out more about the minors at the center, I asked Superintendent Kaiser if she saw any pattern in those detained. She said that many are from poor families and neighborhoods on the north side of Champaign and south side of Urbana, and emphasized that there is an increasing number who come from single-parent households. Another statistics that she brought up that I was surprised to hear was that the majority were males and less than 25% were females. I would only imagine that such a statistics would associate gender with being detained. She also emphasized that there is a very large population of African Americans males at the center, which goes back to the underlying pattern of race and ethnicity of those convicted in Just Mercy. She also said that many of the minors come from alternative schools with a zero-tolerance policy. We talked about the zero-tolerance schools in class and how some school districts choose to implement this in order to weed out the bad kids at earlier ages. I believe such a policy shows that schools are just driving the problem off their hands and giving it to someone else to deal with rather than implementing programs in school to teach and allow students to learn from their mistakes in a positive and nurturing environment. Another consequence of zero-tolerance policy is that it ships off bad-behaving kids, taking a toll on their education and ability to grow intellectually as a student and limiting resources provided. Fortunately, minors at the center are at a math and reading level way below the level that they should be for their age. After a while, we moved on to a question that I was very keen on hearing her response to. I asked her what her stance was on life sentencings to minors in the United States. Right away, she responded with a single cut clear no. She said that there were a lot of external circumstances that need to be taken into consideration when the person under review is a minor. Mental health is one of those factors that many court officials tend to pass over. Many children convicted tend to come from alcoholic and drug-abusing households. In Just Mercy, Stevenson talks about some cases where children like Trina Garrett and Charlie were sentenced, and they came from families that assaulted and sexually abused them. Superintendent Kaiser believes that there are other alternatives that could be taken to reprimand minors, but also help them with rehabilitation. She stresses the importance of education and exposing minors to various work industries. Going on with the conversation, I talked to her about the video of Kenneth's story that we watched for homework. I explained Kenneth's situation in life imprisonment and how despite his efforts to continue his education and get a GED, the courts denied his appeal to be released. I explained how upset I was that not only was he innocent, but he had faith and wanted to continue his education and become a better person despite his sentence. Superintendent Kaiser agreed and said that she looks for improvement in a minor's case at the center, and that plays a big role in their file. To wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask the superintendent a more personal question. I can only imagine that working in a juvenile setting can be emotionally draining. She said that the hardest part of her job is when there aren't adults to guide these children. Their families are not a presence in their lives, and the abandonment and neglect tends to leave them vulnerable and not understand what is right versus what is wrong. However, she said that the reason she does her job is when she sees the improvement in the minors at the center. Recently, she was visited by two former youths that are now happy and healthy adults with a positive future. Overall, from the conversation, I was able to see how mass incarceration is increasingly affecting the younger and younger generations. What we can do to help at this point is to educate others on the problem and work together towards rehabilitating those currently affected.